Top 10 most underrated killer perks you might want to consider using, but first let me say what is goody my gang, what is good fam. In today's video I'm going over the 10 strongest killer perks I don't really see often but are really strong, and some of these are common sense perks where everyone knows that they're strong but still no one uses them, so let's get into the list. Number 10 is Merciless Storm. When a generator reaches 90%, all survivors on that gen are hit with multiple back-to-back difficult continuous skill checks. If the survivor leaves the gen during this or they miss a skill check, the gen is blocked for 20 seconds. This is just a good gen slowdown perk because it blocks the gen for 20 whole seconds. And I think people don't use this perk because if the survivors are above average, they will most likely hit all of the skill checks. To that, I say pair it with a gen info perk, maybe something like Tinkerer, because not only can you sneak up on them like my uncle sneaks up on me, but you can force them off the gen to guarantee that the gen gets blocked. You just gotta make sure you wait until the gen is above 90% to then push them off to guarantee they let go of it. Number 9 is Monitor and Abuse. Your base tear radius is increased by 8 meters but is decreased by 16 meters when you're not in chase. This means if you have a 32 meter TR and you're not in chase, your TR will then be 24 meters, but if you are in chase, it'll be 40 meters. This can really throw survivors off, especially really good survivors, because they play really well off of sound, like hearing the killer's footsteps through walls, hearing me cry in bed at night, and even the TR to know when to get off their gen. This also makes tear radius perks better. You just have to be in chase, which if you're even decent at killer should be almost all game. And a little side effect of this perk is your FOV is increased by 10 degrees when you're not in chase. This makes the game looks way better and can just make it easier to spot survivors when looking for them, but as a blind main, I'm just addicted to Shadowborn, so like yeah, hashtag buff killer FOV. Next at number 8 is Hex No One Escapes Death, or Hex NOED. When all gens are done, you gain a 4% movement speed increase and survivors are one shot permanently, or until the totem is cleansed. No one did get a big nerf when like 50 perks got reworked. By the way, behavior, do it again because the meta is dog shite, making it easier to find and cleanse the totem once it is activated and shown to the survivors, which happens when you down a survivor. But just because the survivors can find it easier doesn't even make it that much weaker. You can still get an almost guaranteed 1 to 2 downs, and this perk is still strong in general. So if you include this perk in your end game build, it will not disappoint you, and if it does disappoint you, that's just a RNG issue or skill issue, I guess. Number 7 is Barbecue and Biscuits. This perk shows survivors that are 40 meters away from the hook where you just hooked a survivor for 5 seconds. This can help with just knowing where to go next, and it's just one of my favorite perks to use on Blight, especially on Blight. Due to his high mobility, I can get to the other side of the map instantly. This perk also used to give you crazy blood points for hooking each individual survivor, but they took that away so killers would bring more perk variety, so it doesn't get blood points anymore, and this is just one of the worst changes that Dead by Daylight has ever made, along with like even bringing Dead Hard in the game and buffing Eruption. I love behavior, but that's just such a behavior thing to do. Nerf the good healthy perks and make the unhealthy boring perks meta. I don't know why they removed the blood points away from Barbecue and Chili. They should add that back. I'd much rather go against the killer who has Barbecue and Chili 10 games in a row than killers that have Eruption, Cola Brine 10 games in a row. Like, it's not even close. At number 6, I have Starstruck. When you're carrying a survivor, all other survivors in your terror radius are exposed and they are insta-downable. They stay that way for 30 seconds after you hook or drop the survivor you had on your shoulder, or when they leave your terror radius. This is just a really decent anti-altruism perk, which is like survivors body blocking and taking hits and stuff like that. That's really it though. This perk is anti-altruism to a T, and sometimes you'll down someone and be like, oh snap, I had no idea they were Starstruck. You can just get an insta free down. I love this perk, especially with a killer with high mobility, especially a killer like Demogorgon. You can also pair this perk with Awakened Awareness, so you see survivors through walls, and you can almost guarantee you get at least one insta down with this perk, or you get at least a few pallets out of it. At number 5, I got Rancor. Everyone knows this perk is cheap, as you can just straight up moy the Obsession for free at endgame. You don't even have to fucking hook them, you can just moy them. And if that's not cheap, then I don't know what is. I mainly have it here because of the second forgotten ability, which is after every gen pop, you can see where all the survivors were at the time when the gen popped, which is actually pretty good information. And the fact you can moy someone you haven't even hooked yet is just fucking crazy. It is counterable because the Obsession does see your aura after every gen pop, so like they can just hide and play safe when there's one gen left. Like, it's not that big of a deal unless you already have like a survivor out of the game and it's a 3v1, then that's when it becomes a really big problem for the Obsession. But other than that, it's not OP, it's just a really cheap perk. At number 4, I got Bitter Murmur. Whenever a gen is completed, everyone near that gen is showed to you for 5 seconds, so you get wall hacks for 5 seconds, but when the last gen pops, you see all survivors for 10 seconds. 10 seconds of wall hacks is just disgusting. It's like Bloodhound from Apex. Paired with the info that you're almost guaranteed throughout the whole game, it just makes the perk really good. I rarely ever see this perk used anymore, unless it's a Huntress cross-mapping me inside of an indoor map somehow. I don't understand. It's also an underrated perk because of the endgame 10-second of wall hacks. It makes it a really decent endgame perk and can really slide in with the endgame build. It's just Lethal Pursuer, but for endgame. And if there's 2 or 3 survivors left, you know where they all are, you could potentially turn that into a 3 or 4k in and of itself. Just underrated information perk. A lot of these perks are information perks, and just the amount of information you can get from these perks is just insane, and it's a shame that I barely see these perks used anymore. At number 3, I got Agitation. When carrying a survivor, your speed is increased by 18% and your terror radius is increased by 12 meters. And if you were not aware, when you're carrying a survivor, you walk slower than the survivors can actually run, which makes them catching up and getting some body blocks in to get the guy to wiggle off your shoulder is very common. But with this perk, you were actually faster than the survivors. This can help you with people trying to body block. You can catch up to them, or if they sabotage a hook, you can reach a good one, or you can reach a scourge hook that you wouldn't have made otherwise. The terror radius increase can also help with some perk synergies, such as Starstruck, as I mentioned before, which is a plus and more proof that this perk is underrated. I actually don't really run this perk that often because I usually play Blight, so a lot of survivors don't try to be over altruistic because Blight is one of the killers that can make you pay for it. And I don't run Starstruck too often. I only mainly run Starstruck if I'm playing like Trapper, Wraith, or Demogorgon. So like I completely understand why this perk isn't used as much because it's not too often where it gets value, but if you bring a Scourge hook perk such as Pain Res, I really think you should bring Agitation just to guarantee that you get the Pain Res. At number 2, I got Surveillance. Gens that are losing progress are highlighted in white. If the regression is interrupted at the gen, it will glow yellow for 60 seconds, so you know either a survivor tapped it or they are actively working on it right now. This is just an ultimate info perk, not as strong as like other perks like Lethal Pursuer, so like don't get me wrong, but this perk makes guarding gens a cakewalk. If you're trying to play somebody like Knight and you want to hold a 3 gen for a fucking hour, bring this perk. It can actually really help. But if you want to, you could just bring Overcharge instead, but not everybody's trying to run Overcharge. Every killer runs fucking Overcharge nowadays, so like if you want to spice it up, just bring Surveillance. It's just as good. Not really, it's weaker. I just keep trying to make it sound good. It's not as good as other perks, but it's still a good perk. You know what I'm saying? And you can hear generator repairs from an extra 8 meters away, which is a huge bonus for stealth killers in particular. You don't have to use stealth all the way until you get up to the gen to hear if it's being worked on or not. You can just hear it through walls very easily. Huge W perk, great design, just not meta, so nobody runs it, which is a shame. I really love this perk. And at number 1, I have the most underrated perk in Dead by Daylight for a killer, Discordance. When more than one person is on a gen, you get a noise notification and the gen is highlighted in yellow, so you know exactly what gen it is. This perk is just a chef's kiss. It's info through the whole game without fail. The only way you don't get value from this perk is if survivors never hop on a gen together, and if they don't, then you'll be learning a valuable lesson about learning how important it is to pressure your gens. This perk single-handedly wins me games sometimes. For me and other DBD like YouTubers and streamers and stuff, they all love this perk. The gen will also stop glowing yellow after a few seconds when one of the survivors leave it. So if a gen is yellow and you start making your way there and you see it turns back to red, you know that either A, one person hopped off of it so you could try to cut them off from where they could be going, or B, leave the gen alone because maybe last time you saw it, it was at 0 and now there's like one person on it, so you could pressure a different, more favorable gen. Or C, if you were trying to tunnel and you know where 2 survivors are, like they're near you trying to be altruistic, and then you see this perk go off, you know exactly where the last 2 people is and the survivor you're trying to get. This is a super simple but effective perk. I love the design. It's just not meta. I've always considered it really strong, but it's just not considered meta by the wide majority of Dead by Daylight players, so not very many people use it, which is a shame because I love this perk. It is the most underrated perk in the game, and those are the top 10 most underrated killer perks in my opinion. By underrated, I don't mean meta. That's not what I'm saying at all. Obviously none of these perks are meta, but these perks are strong in their own way. These perks have one design, one objective, and they execute it really well. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you have a perk that you don't agree with or you think should have been on this list, let me know in the comments, and make sure you hit the subscribe button. We're trying to get 550 subscribers. We've been on the up and up, and we're trying to get 100 subscribers on the Twitch. Right now we are at 63 or 66, I believe, so why not go follow the Twitch? It is on screen now, and I already have some good videos lined up that I already have clips for, but if you have a good video idea, put it in the comments. I will consider making it a video. I am always open to ideas. Just let me know in the comments. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and until next time.